Mrs. Claus's Christmas Wish by Melissa Gaddy. This story is dedicated to everyone's Christmas wish and hoping that one day they will all come true. Up in the North Pole, Santa and his elves were very busy. There are only 2 days left until Christmas Eve, Santa shouted over the ruckus of the workshop. We must finish these toys. There's no time for rest. As tension rose in Santa's workshop, Mrs. Claus was at home, watching from her kitchen window as the beautiful snowflakes fell to the ground. As much as she loved this view, she couldn't help but wonder what adventure the world held past her frosted North Pole window. Santa is so lucky, she thought as she mended her husband's worn-out jacket. Every year he gets to see the entire world, while I have never even left the North Pole. My Christmas wish would be to see the whole world as well. Putting her feelings aside, Mrs. Claus got to work, making Santa dinner and cookies for when he got home. Soon, dinner time came and went, and Santa was still not home. Mrs. Claus made her way over to the workshop to see what he was up to. Santa, Mrs. Claus exclaimed, what are you doing? You're late for dinner and have been working all day. If you don't take time to rest, you're going to make yourself sick. Oh, Mrs. Claus, Santa answered, I've been doing this job for years. I can rest after Christmas. For now, we must work until we finish all the toys. Frustrated, Mrs. Claus made her way back to the house. Later that night, Santa finally came home. He was very pale and had a terrible cough. You should stay home tomorrow, Mrs. Claus suggested, serving Santa his dinner. If you don't take care of yourself now, you will be even sicker on Christmas Eve. Then what will you do? Don't worry, Mrs. Claus, Santa said, sneezing. I will rest when the work is done. The next day, as Santa worked in his workshop, Kringle the elf ran into Mrs. Claus's kitchen. Mrs. Claus, Kringle called, panting. Santa's very sick. He has a high fever and is at the doctor's office right now. Mrs. Claus got her coat from its rack and rushed out the door. He is too overworked and must stay in bed for 3 days until his fever drops, said Dr. Noel. 3 days, Santa barked. But Christmas Eve is tomorrow. How will I deliver all the presents? Suddenly, Mrs. Claus had a great idea. I can, she offered confidently. I have seen you fix the sleigh and fly it every year. After all these years in the North Pole, I know the sleigh just as well as you. Santa looked at the doctor, then to Kringle, and down at his feet. He knew that Mrs. Claus was right about everything, about driving the sleigh and about taking care of himself. Christmas Eve was finally here, and Mrs. Claus packed the sleigh with toys. Goodbye, Mrs. Claus. Good luck, called the elves. As the reindeer lifted the sleigh and flew across the sky, Mrs. Claus's Christmas wish had finally come true, since for the first time in her life she had left the North Pole and seen the whole world. The end.